The taste of blood in my mouth was metallic as I steadied myself against the wall of our living room. At 26, I never expected my father to hit me, especially not over trying to save him from financial ruin. "Get out of my house," Dad snarled, his face red with rage. "How dare you accuse Marcus of fraud? He's making us all rich." I straightened up, touching my split lip while clutching a Manila envelope in my other hand. Working as a forensic accountant had taught me to spot financial scams from a mile away, and Marcus Reynolds' investment opportunity had more red flags than a parade. "Dad, please," I tried again, keeping my voice steady. "Just look at these documents. He's not investing anything. He's stealing." "Enough, Daniel," he shouted. "You're just like your mother, always questioning my decisions, always thinking you know better." The mention of Mom sent a sharp pain through my chest. She passed away 8 months ago after a long battle with cancer, leaving Dad with her life insurance and retirement accounts. Money that was now in Marcus Reynolds' hands. "Actually, I am like Mom," I said, pulling out the bank statements, "because she wouldn't let you throw away everything she worked for either." Before I could show him the papers, the front door opened. Marcus Reynolds walked in, his expensive suit and Rolex watch paid for with other people's life savings. "James, I've got great news about the investment returns." "Oh?" His practiced smile faltered slightly when he saw me. "Daniel, I didn't expect to see you here." I watched him closely. At 45, Marcus was younger than my father but carried himself with the authority of someone used to commanding rooms. He'd spent the last 3 months convincing Dad to invest more and more money into his exclusive investment fund. "He was just leaving," Dad said firmly, shooting me a warning look. "Actually," I stepped forward, "I think we all need to have a conversation about where Mom's money went." Marcus's smile didn't waver, but I caught the slight twitch in his left eye. "James, perhaps we should discuss business in private." "No," I interrupted, pulling out more documents. "Let's discuss it now. Let's talk about how you emptied all of Dad's accounts yesterday, how you've done this to 3 other families in the past 2 years under different names." The color drained from Marcus's face for just a second before he recovered. "James, your son is clearly troubled. As I've explained, the temporary account transfer is standard procedure for." "For what?" I challenged. "For running away with people's life savings, like you did to the Hendersons in Florida? Or the Paddles in Texas?" Dad's head snapped toward Marcus, uncertainty finally creeping into his expression. "What is he talking about?" I spread the documents on our coffee table. Marcus Reynolds is also known as Michael Richards and Mark Randall. He finds grieving families, gains their trust, convinces them to invest everything, then disappears with their money. "These are ridiculous accusations," Marcus said smoothly, but he was slowly edging toward the door. "James, remember what I told you about negative people trying to undermine your success." "Success?" I laughed bitterly. "Dad, check your accounts right now. Call the bank." Dad's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. I could see the moment reality hit him. His face went from angry to confused to horrified in the span of seconds. "The accounts? They're empty," he whispered. "Marcus, what?" But Marcus was already running. I had expected this and pressed a button on my phone. "He's heading out now." The sound of police sirens filled the air outside our house. I coordinated with the fraud division, timing everything perfectly. Through the window, I watched as 2 police cars intercepted Marcus before he could reach his car. Dad sank into his armchair, looking suddenly old and broken. "Your mother's insurance money, her retirement, everything." "Not everything," I said quietly, pulling out one final document. "I froze the main account this morning when I found proof of the fraud." "He only got the smaller accounts." "How did you know?" Dad asked, his voice small. I sat across from him, wincing at the pain in my lip. "Mom asked me to look out for you before she died. She knew you'd be vulnerable. When I saw you with Marcus at her funeral, looking for potential investors instead of paying respects, I started investigating." Through the window, we watched the police handcuffing Marcus. His perfect facade had cracked, replaced by a snarl as they led him to the patrol car. "Daniel," Dad started, finally looking at my injured face. "I hate you. I chose to believe a stranger over my own son." "You did," I agreed, touching my lip. "Because you were grieving and he took advantage of that." But Dad, we need to talk about this pattern. About how you react when people try to help you. A detective walked up our driveway, evidence bags in hand. Soon, we need to give statements, file reports, and begin the long process of rebuilding both our finances and our relationship. Dad stared at Mom's picture on the mantel, tears in his eyes. She would be so disappointed in me. No, I corrected him, following his gaze to Mom's smiling face. She'd be proud I caught him. And she'd want us to fix this, all of it, together. The doorbell rang, announcing the detective's arrival. Before answering it, I looked at Dad one more time. Are you ready to face this? He nodded slowly, straightening his shoulders. Yes, and Daniel, I'm sorry, for everything. It wasn't enough, not yet. But as we stood to answer the door, I knew it was a start. The next week was a blur of police statements, financial paperwork, and devastating revelations. The detective's investigation uncovered that Marcus Reynolds' operation was larger than we initially thought. He had stolen from over 20 families in 5 states, always targeting recent widowers or grieving families. He watched obituaries, Detective Sarah Torres explained, spreading photographs across our dining room table, attended funerals, grief support groups. He studied his victims, learned their vulnerabilities. Each photo showed Marcus with different families, always wearing the same sympathetic expression he'd used with Dad. The total amount stolen was staggering, over $12 million. Most of the money is probably offshore, I said, reviewing the financial trails I'd helped trace. My forensic accounting skills had made me valuable to the investigation team. Dad sat quietly, staring at the photos. He'd aged years in just days, the weight of his mistakes visible in the new lines on his face. We found us in his hotel room, Detective Torres said, sliding a notebook across the table. He kept detailed notes on all his targets. My hands shook as I opened it. There, in neat handwriting, was a profile on our family. James Parker, wife deceased, cancer. One son, Daniel, potential problem, works in finance. Life insurance payout, $500,000. Retirement accounts, $350,000, extremely susceptible to flattery regarding business acumen. He was studying us even before Mom's funeral, I said quietly. Dad grabbed the notebook, reading with growing horror. He noted when I talked about your mother, said to use her memory to manipulate me. Detective Torres nodded grimly. He was a master manipulator. Use people's grief against them. A knock at the door interrupted us. Kate, my girlfriend, and a criminal prosecutor entered carrying a stack of files. We found something interesting, she said, placing the files on the table. Marcus had a partner, someone who helped him identify targets. She opened the first file, revealing photos of a grief counselor. Meet Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She ran support groups at 3 different hospitals. Guess who attended those groups? All the victims, Detective Torres breathed, quickly connecting the dots. She got a percentage of every scam, Kate continued. She's being arrested as we speak. Dad's hands clenched into fists. The grief counselor I saw after your mother died, she introduced me to Marcus. The betrayal ran deeper than we'd imagined. They hadn't just stolen money, they'd exploited people at their most vulnerable moments. There's more, Kate said softly, looking at me. The notes show they were planning to target the insurance payout from your mother's medical malpractice suit. I felt the blood drain from my face. We'd been building a case against the hospital for months, documenting their negligence in Mom's treatment. The potential settlement was in the millions. They were going to wait until we won the lawsuit, I realized. This was just the first phase. Dad stood up abruptly, walking to the window. I almost let them take everything. Your mother's legacy, your inheritance, all of it. But you didn't, I said firmly. We caught them. After I hit you, he turned back, his eyes wet. After I chose him over you, over everything your mother and I built. Kate and Detective Torres quietly excused themselves, leaving us alone with the weight of everything we'd learned. You know what Mom would say right now? I asked, joining him at the window. That she told me so. Dad attempted a weak smile. No, she'd say that the money doesn't matter. That what matters is what we do next. I pulled out my phone, showing him an email I'd received that morning. The fraud recovery team has frozen all of Marcus's known accounts. They think they can recover about 60% of what he stole. That's something, Dad nodded slowly. And the malpractice suit? I continued. I want us to handle it together. No more secret investments, no more refusing help. We do this as a family. Dad was quiet for a long moment, looking at Mom's garden outside the window. She'd spent years making it perfect, each flower planted with care and purpose. I've been so lost without her, he finally said, trying to prove I could succeed on my own, make big decisions, be the man she always believed I was. Instead, I nearly destroyed everything she worked for. Then let's fix it, I said. Together. He turned to me, really looking at me for the first time since that day in the living room. The split in my lip was healing, but the lesson it taught us both would last forever. Your mother would be proud of you, he said softly. You protected our family when I couldn't. She'd be proud of both of us, I corrected him, because we're going to make this right. Outside, Mom's garden bloomed in the summer sun, a reminder that even after the darkest winters, new growth is possible. We had a long way to go, trust to rebuild, wounds to heal, and justice to pursue. But for the first time since we lost Mom, Dad and I were truly on the same side. And somewhere, I knew Mom was smiling. 3 months later, I sat in a courthouse gallery, watching Marcus Reynolds and Dr. Sarah Mitchell face justice. The prosecution had built an airtight case, combining financial records, victim testimonies, and their detailed notebooks of planned scams. Kate stood before the judge, delivering her closing argument with fierce determination. These defendants didn't just commit financial fraud. They deliberately targeted grieving families, exploiting their darkest moments for profit. They turned grief counseling, a sacred trust, into a hunting ground. I gripped Dad's hand as we listened to the verdict. 20 years for Marcus, 15 for Dr. Mitchell. No possibility of parole. As they were led away, Marcus caught my eye. The smooth confidence was gone, replaced by cold hatred. I held his gaze steadily, thinking of all the families he'd hurt, all the lives he'd nearly ruined. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered around the victims' families. Dad stepped forward, his voice strong as he addressed the cameras. Today isn't just about punishment, he said. It's about healing. To anyone who's been targeted by these predators, don't let shame silence you. Come forward. Help us help you. His words would make headlines the next day, encouraging more victims to come forward and leading to the discovery of 3 more accomplices in different states. Back home, we sat in Mom's garden, where the fall flowers were beginning to bloom. The recovery team had managed to return almost 70% of the stolen funds, exceeding their initial estimates. The malpractice suit goes to court next month, I reminded Dad, sipping the coffee he'd made. We'd both been working with the lawyers, building an even stronger case than before. I know, he nodded. But this time, I'm not focused on the money. It's about accountability, about making sure other families don't go through what we did. He changed in the past months. The angry, defensive man who'd struck me was gone, replaced by someone more thoughtful, more willing to listen. We've been seeing a real grief counselor together, learning to navigate our loss honestly. Look what I found yesterday, Dad said, pulling out an old photo album. Inside were pictures of Mom at my college graduation, both of us laughing as I tried to fix her camera. She always had that camera ready, I smiled, touching the photo gently. Daniel, Dad's voice grew serious. I've been thinking about the settlement money when we win the case. Dad, we don't have to. Let me finish, he interrupted softly. I want to start a foundation in your mother's name to help families affected by medical malpractice and financial fraud. Provide legal support, counseling, real counseling, whatever they need. I stared at him, seeing Mom's compassion shining through his eyes. We could call it the Sarah Parker Foundation, he continued. Help turn our tragedy into something meaningful. Mom would love that, I said, my throat tight with emotion. There's more, he added. I want you to run it. You have the financial expertise, the legal connections through Kate, and most importantly, you have your mother's heart. Before I could respond, Kate's car pulled into the driveway. She hurried toward us, waving a document. The judge just signed the order, she announced triumphantly. All of Marcus's remaining assets will be liquidated and distributed to the victims, including his houses, cars, everything. Dad stood up, pulling her into a hug. Thank you. For everything. That's not all, she grinned. Remember those offshore accounts you traced, Daniel? Interpol found them. Another $20 million hidden in various tax havens. The news should have been exciting, but all I felt was peace. The money wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was sitting right here, in Mom's garden, with the people I loved. So, Kate said, settling beside me, "Tell me about this foundation idea your dad mentioned." I looked at Dad, surprised. "You told her?" He shrugged, smiling. "We've been planning it for weeks. Kate's already drafted the incorporation papers." As the sun set over Mom's flowers, we sat together, planning how to turn our pain into purpose. The foundation would be our way of fighting back against predators like Marcus, of helping other families protect themselves. "Your mother always said that helping others was the best way to heal ourselves," Dad mused, looking at her picture in the album. I touched my lip, where the small scar remained, a reminder of how far we'd come. She was right. She usually was. To Sarah Parker, Kate raised her coffee cup, and to the legacy she inspired. To Mom, Dad, and I echoed. As darkness fell, Mom's garden glowed with the solar lights she'd installed years ago, tiny beacons of hope in the gathering night. We faced our darkness and emerged stronger, not just as survivors but as advocates for change. The foundation would be our light in others' darkness, our way of ensuring that Mom's compassion lived on. And somewhere, I knew she was proud of how we turned our tragedy into triumph, our pain into purpose, our loss into legacy. "Mrs. Ellis, this is Officer Martinez. We have your children at the station." My heart stopped as I gripped the phone tighter, trying to process what I was hearing. It was 2 a.m., and I was exhausted from my hospital night shift, but those words jolted me awake like a bolt of lightning. "What?" "My children should be with their grandmother. I'm working the night shift." My voice trailed off as panic started to set in. "Ma'am, your neighbors found them wandering in the snow around midnight. They were outside your mother-in-law's house for hours. They're safe now, but quite shaken up. We need you to come to the station immediately." I felt like I was going to be sick. My babies, Lily, 8, and Jake, 6, had been left out in the freezing cold by their own grandmother. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, I managed to say before hanging up. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely text my supervisor that I had a family emergency. As I drove to the station, memories from earlier that evening flooded back. Margaret, my mother-in-law, had agreed to watch the kids during my night shift. She'd watched them dozens of times before, though always with an undercurrent of resentment. Ever since David, my husband, passed away 2 years ago, she'd made it clear she blamed me for having to parent my grandchildren while I worked. When I dropped them off at 6 p.m., she'd been oddly dressed up, wearing an expensive dress and jewelry. Still, she'd let them in with her usual tight smile and dismissive wave in my direction. I should have known something was wrong. I should have trusted my gut when Lily had clung to my leg a little longer than usual. The police station was brightly lit against the dark winter night. Officer Martinez met me at the door, his expression grim. "Your children are with our child advocate now," he said, leading me down a hallway. "They're cold and frightened, but otherwise unharmed. However, we need to discuss what happened." We entered a small room where a woman in her 30s sat with my kids. Lily and Jake were wrapped in blankets, clutching hot chocolate. The moment they saw me, they burst into tears. "Mommy," they cried in unison, running into my arms. I held them tight, my own tears falling as I felt how cold they still were. "Your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, found them huddled under a bush in your mother-in-law's front yard," Officer Martinez explained. "According to your children, Mrs. Ellis had plans to attend a dinner party. When they accidentally spilled juice on her dress, well, perhaps you should hear it from them." Lily, always the protective big sister, spoke first. "Grandma got really mad when Jake spilled his apple juice. She said we ruined her fancy dress and her special dinner plans. She started screaming that she was sick of babysitting us, and Lily's voice cracked. Jake continued in a small voice. "She pushed us outside and locked the door. She said we could come back when we learned to behave. But she never came back, Mommy. We knocked and knocked." The child advocate, who introduced herself as Miss Thompson, spoke softly. "The children tried to stay warm under a bush. They were afraid to leave the yard because they thought their grandmother might come back. Mrs. Chen found them around midnight when she heard Jake crying." I felt a rage I'd never experienced before building inside me. Margaret had always been cold, always made it clear she thought I wasn't good enough for her precious son. But this leaving 2 small children outside in the middle of winter? We've been unable to reach Mrs. Ellis, Officer Martinez added. Her car is gone, and she's not answering her phone. Given the circumstances, we've had to contact Child Protective Services. They'll need to conduct an investigation. An investigation? I whispered, holding my children closer. Standard procedure when children are abandoned or endangered, Miss Thompson explained gently. We need to ensure their safety and document what happened. We'll also need to discuss a restraining order against Mrs. Ellis. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Had to attend an important dinner party. The children were misbehaving. Don't be dramatic. A little cold never hurt anyone. They needed to learn respect. I showed the text to Officer Martinez, whose expression hardened. This will be helpful for our report, he said, taking a photo of my phone screen. Mrs. Ellis clearly admits to leaving them intentionally. Lily tugged at my sleeve. Mommy, can we go home? We're really tired. Of course, baby, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We're going home right now. As we left the station, Miss Thompson handed me her card. We'll need to meet tomorrow to discuss next steps. Try to document any other incidents with Mrs. Ellis you can remember. And Mrs. Anderson, don't respond to any messages from her. Let everything go through official channels now. I nodded, too exhausted and emotional to speak. As I buckled my children into their car seats, I could see them finally relaxing, knowing they were safe. But I couldn't relax. This was just the beginning of what promised to be a long battle with my mother-in-law. What Margaret didn't know was that I'd been documenting her behavior for months. The snide comments, the neglect, the emotional abuse. I'd started keeping records after she'd forgotten to pick Jake up from school, leaving him waiting in the cold for 2 hours. I had texts, emails, witnesses. She thought I was a pushover, a weak woman who needed her help to raise my children. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The next morning, while Lily and Jake slept in my bed, my phone exploded with messages from Margaret, each one more manipulative than the last. You're overreacting. Children today are too coddled. I had important people to meet. You should be grateful I watched them at all. David would be so disappointed in how you're turning his children against me. I ignored them all, focusing instead on documenting everything for my meeting with CPS. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, had already sent me security camera footage from her house. The video clearly showed Margaret screaming at my children before pushing them outside and driving away in her Mercedes. The timestamp showed she left them at 6:45 p.m., nearly 6 hours before they were found. At 10 a.m., Margaret showed up at my door, unannounced. I watched through the peephole as she repeatedly rang the doorbell, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing the button aggressively. I know you're in there, she called out, her voice sickly sweet. Don't be childish, dear. We need to talk about this little misunderstanding. Little misunderstanding? My children could have frozen to death. I recorded her entire performance on my phone as she continued. The kids were being difficult. I had an important dinner with the country club board. They're considering me for president, you know. I couldn't miss it because your children can't behave. Just then, Miss Thompson from CPS pulled up in her car. Margaret's face twisted with rage when she saw the official vehicle. You called CPS, she shrieked, dropping her polite facade. How dare you? I'm their grandmother. I have rights. Miss Thompson approached calmly, her badge visible. Mrs. Ellis, I'm Sharon Thompson from Child Protective Services. We need to discuss the events of last night. This is ridiculous, Margaret spat. She's turning my grandchildren against me just like she turned David against me before he died. I felt a familiar pain at the mention of David, but this time it was overshadowed by anger. Margaret had always implied that David's choice to drive that night 2 years ago was somehow my fault, as if I had caused the drunk driver to hit his car. Mrs. Ellis, Miss Thompson said firmly, you left 2 minor children outside in freezing temperatures for several hours. This is a serious matter that requires investigation. They were being difficult, Margaret protested. Sometimes children need tough love. Back in your day, I interrupted, finally opening the door. Leaving children to freeze wasn't considered acceptable either. You abandoned them to attend a dinner party. Margaret's face reddened. Well, if you didn't work night shifts like some common nurse, I wouldn't have to watch them at all. Mrs. Ellis, Miss Thompson interjected, I have the police report here. along with your text messages admitting to leaving the children intentionally. We need to discuss the consequences of your actions." Just then, Lily appeared behind me, her small face hardening when she saw her grandmother. "You left us in the cold," she said quietly. "Jake cried for hours." Margaret's expression shifted instantly to one of fake concern. "Darling, you know Grandma loves you. You were being naughty, and I just stepped out for a minute." 6 hours, Ms. Thompson corrected, checking her notes. "You left them outside for 6 hours while you attended a dinner party." The security footage confirms this. The color drained from Margaret's face at the mention of security footage. "What footage?" "Mrs. Chen's security cameras captured everything," I explained calmly, "including you pushing them outside and driving away. The timestamps don't lie, Margaret." For the first time, real fear crept into Margaret's eyes. Her carefully constructed image of the doting grandmother was crumbling, and we both knew it. "This isn't over," she hissed, turning on her heel. "I'll call my lawyer. You'll regret this." "Document everything," Ms. Thompson advised. "Every call, every text, every attempt to contact you or the children. We'll add it all to the file." After Ms. Thompson left, I sat with Lily on the couch, stroking her hair. "Are you okay, sweetie?" She nodded slowly. "Mommy, why does Grandma hate us?" My heart broke at her question. "She doesn't hate you, honey. She's not well. She makes bad choices, but that's not your fault. It's never your fault." "Is she going to take us away?" "No, baby, never. Mommy won't let that happen." As if to punctuate my promise, my phone buzzed with another text from Margaret. "You've made a huge mistake. I have powerful friends. We'll see who the courts believe, a grieving grandmother or an overworked single mother who leaves her children with others." I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing file of evidence. Margaret had always used her social status and connections as weapons, but she'd finally gone too far. Her mask had slipped, revealing the cruel woman beneath the polished exterior. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment. Every incident, every cruel comment, every time she neglected the children, it was all documented. She thought she could bully me into submission, just like she'd always done. But this time, I wasn't backing down. This time, I was fighting back. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom, watching Margaret's carefully constructed world crumble around her. Her expensive lawyer shifted uncomfortably as the security footage played on the screen. Crystal clear evidence of her pushing my children into the cold and driving away in her Mercedes. "Mrs. Ellis," the judge's voice was sharp. "Would you care to explain your actions?" Margaret, dressed in her finest Chanel suit, tried to maintain her dignified facade. "Your Honor, I was simply trying to teach him a valuable lesson about respect. In my day." "In your day," the judge interrupted, "child endangerment was still a crime. The temperature that night was 28 degrees Fahrenheit. These children could have died." I watched as Margaret's mask finally cracked. "They ruined my dress," she burst out, her composure slipping. "I had an important dinner. Do you know how long I've worked to become president of the country club board? I couldn't show up with juice stains." The collective gasp in the courtroom said everything. Even her lawyer winced. "So you prioritized a dinner party over your grandchildren's safety?" the judge asked, her voice heavy with disgust. "They're always ruining everything," Margaret shouted, completely losing control. "Ever since their mother started working those common night shifts instead of remarrying like a proper widow. David would be ashamed." "Mrs. Ellis," the judge cut her off sharply, "your son would likely be more ashamed of a grandmother who abandoned his children in freezing temperatures." The truth of those words seemed to hit Margaret like a physical blow. For a moment, she looked lost, as if finally hearing how she sounded. My lawyer stood up, holding a thick folder. "Your Honor, we have documented evidence of Mrs. Ellis's pattern of neglect and emotional abuse. Text messages, emails, and witness statements from teachers and neighbors. This wasn't an isolated incident." As the evidence was presented, I thought about all the times I'd stayed quiet, all the times I'd made excuses for Margaret's behavior. Never again. The judge reviewed the documents carefully before looking up. "Given the severity of this incident and the clear pattern of behavior, I am granting the permanent protective order. Mrs. Ellis, you are not to come within 500 feet of your grandchildren or their mother. Any contact must be approved by the court and supervised." "You can't do this," Margaret shrieked, her carefully maintained aristocratic accent slipping. "Those are my grandchildren. I have rights." "Rights you forfeited when you left them to freeze," the judge responded firmly. "You're fortunate we're not pursuing criminal charges. Though if you violate this order, that will change." Outside the courtroom, Mrs. Chen waited with Lily and Jake. She'd become like family these past weeks, helping watch the kids when I worked. The children ran to me, and I hugged them tight. "Is it over, Mommy?" Lily asked. "Is Grandma going to leave us alone now?" "Yes, sweetheart, she can't hurt you anymore." As if on cue, Margaret stormed out of the courtroom. When she saw us, she started toward us. But 2 court officers stepped between us. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I'll appeal." Mrs. Ellis, one officer warned, "You're already dangerously close to violating the order." I watched as they escorted her away, her threats fading down the hallway. She looked smaller somehow, her power over us finally broken. That evening, as I tucked the kids into bed, Jake asked a question that broke my heart. "Mommy, did Daddy know Grandma was mean?" I sat on the edge of his bed, choosing my words carefully. "Your daddy loved you both very much. He would have done anything to protect you, just like I will." "I miss him," Lily whispered from her bed. "Me too, baby, but you know what? He'd be so proud of how brave you both are." After they fell asleep, I sat in the living room looking at old photos. One caught my eye, David and me on our wedding day. Margaret had been scowling in the background, already disapproving. But David's smile was radiant as he looked at me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, clearly Margaret using a different phone. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy." I blocked the number without responding. She was wrong. I hadn't destroyed anything. I protected my children just as David would have wanted, just as I should have done sooner. The next morning, I woke to find Lily and Jake making breakfast. Well, trying to. The kitchen was a mess of spilled cereal and milk. "We wanted to surprise you," Lily explained anxiously. "Are you mad?" 6 months ago, I might have heard Margaret's voice in my head, criticizing their messiness. But now I just saw my children, happy and safe in their own home. "Not mad at all," I said, grabbing paper towels to help clean up. "But next time, let's make breakfast together, okay?" Their smiles were worth every battle, every court date, every moment of stress. We were free now, free from Margaret's manipulation, free from the constant criticism and fear. As we cleaned up together, laughing about their failed breakfast surprise, I knew we'd be okay. More than okay, we were stronger now, closer than ever. Sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest peace. "We're having Marcus's promotion party instead," my mother-in-law announced, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "You'll need to cancel Emily's birthday celebration. The country club can only host one event, and Marcus's career takes priority." I gripped my phone tighter, glancing at the half-decorated living room where Emily's double-digits birthday banner hung. My daughter had been counting down the days until she turned 10, marking each morning off her calendar with stars and hearts. "Diana, we've had this plan for months," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. "Emily's invited her whole class. We've paid deposits." "Oh, Margaret won't remember anyway. She's only turning 10. My sister-in-law Jessica chimed in from the background. "Marcus made junior partner at the law firm. That's a real achievement." "Her name is Emily," I corrected, though I knew it was pointless. They'd been getting my daughter's name wrong for years, a subtle reminder that she wasn't really part of their perfect family picture. "My name is Olivia Chen, and at 35, I'd spent the last 12 years trying to make my daughter feel included in a family that saw her as an afterthought. I married James Anderson believing love would be enough to bridge any family differences." Now, watching Emily carefully arrange her party favors, little science kits she'd helped me put together, I wondered how I'd been so naive. "James agrees with us," Diana continued, her tone making it clear this wasn't up for discussion. "The family needs to present a united front for Marcus's colleagues. You understand, don't you?" Of course, James agreed. My husband had never been able to stand up to his family, always choosing the path of least resistance. "Actually, I don't understand," I replied. "And I'm not canceling Emily's party." "Don't be difficult, Olivia. The country club's already changed the reservation. We used your deposit toward Marcus's party. It's done." I felt a cold calm settle over me as the pieces clicked into place. They hadn't just decided this, They'd planned it, deliberately waiting until the last minute to tell me. What they didn't know was that I'd been doing some planning of my own. How did you change the reservation? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The contract's in my name. Diana's pause was barely noticeable. James gave me the information. I am his mother, after all. I watched Emily laying out her party dress, the one she'd chosen specially because it matched the lab coat she wore at her science club. My brilliant, beautiful daughter deserved so much better than being pushed aside for the golden child's latest accomplishment. Well, then there's been a misunderstanding, I said pleasantly, because I changed venues 3 weeks ago. The country club was just a decoy. What are you talking about? Diana's voice lost its smug edge. Check your email. You should have received confirmation that Marcus's party has been canceled. The country club has strict policies about unauthorized reservation changes. They've blacklisted the Anderson family name for fraudulent booking practices. You can't do that. Jessica screeched in the background. I already did. Oh, and Diana? I checked the guest list for Emily's party. You might recognize some names, including several partners from Marcus's law firm. Turns out they're very interested in meeting the 10-year-old who won the state science fair with her project on corporate environmental responsibility. The silence on the other end was deafening. I continued, enjoying the moment. Emily's party is at the Natural Science Museum. They were thrilled to host it, especially after hearing about her project. The local paper is sending a photographer. This is ridiculous, Diana sputtered. James will never allow. James signed the permission forms for the museum himself. I interrupted. 3 weeks ago, right after your first attempt to access my party planning account. Did you really think I wouldn't have safeguards in place? That I wouldn't protect my daughter? I hung up before they could respond, turning to find Emily beaming at me. Mom, I finished sorting the party favors. Do you think my friends will like doing real experiments? They'll love them, sweetie, I assured her, pulling her into a hug. Your party is going to be perfect. My phone started buzzing with texts from James's family, accusations, demands, guilt trips. I silenced it without reading them. They'd underestimated me for the last time, assuming I'd roll over and let them hurt my daughter again. But I'd learned from their previous schemes, documented every attempt to push Emily aside, and built relationships with exactly the right people. Tomorrow, they'd learn exactly what happened when you pushed a mother too far. The party Emily was getting wouldn't just be a celebration, it would be a statement, and the Anderson family's carefully curated image was about to get a very public makeover. I looked at my daughter, happily arranging her science-themed decorations, completely unaware of the storm brewing in her father's family. She deserved this moment, this celebration of everything she was and everything she could become. For once, she would be the center of attention, her achievements recognized and celebrated. And if Marcus's law firm partners happened to learn some uncomfortable truths about the Anderson family's treatment of their young science prodigy, well, that was just the cherry on top of the birthday cake. The Natural Science Museum was transformed. Interactive experiment stations dotted the main hall, each one carefully designed to showcase both science and wonder. Emily stood at the entrance in her party dress and lab coat, greeting her guests with infectious enthusiasm. Every time the doors opened, her eyes lit up with pure joy. Mrs. Anderson. A tall man in an expensive suit approached me. I'm Richard Peterson, managing partner at Hamilton and Brooks, Marcus's firm. He smiled warmly. Your daughter's science fair project caught my attention. Environmental corporate responsibility isn't just impressive for a 10-year-old. It's exactly what our firm's been focusing on. Before I could respond, Diana and Jessica burst through the doors, with James trailing behind them, looking uncomfortable. My mother-in-law's face was red with barely contained rage. What is the meaning of this? Diana hissed, grabbing my arm. Marcus's colleagues are supposed to be at his party. Mrs. Anderson. Richard called out cheerfully. Your granddaughter's party is remarkable. I had no idea your family was so invested in science education. Diana's grip loosened as she forced a smile. Oh well, yes of course Though I must say, Richard continued, I'm confused about the competing event. Marcus mentioned a promotion party, but surely the firm would have been informed. We take partnership announcements very seriously. Jessica's smug expression faltered. Marcus is being made junior partner. It's practically confirmed. Richard's eyebrows rose. Is that so? Because partnership decisions won't be made for another 3 months, and unauthorized announcements are, he paused meaningfully, strongly discouraged. I watched the color drain from their faces as they realized the magnitude of their mistake. Not only had they failed to cancel Emily's party, but they'd also potentially jeopardized Marcus's career with their presumption. Look what my mom helped me set up. Emily's voice rang out as she demonstrated a chemical reaction to a group of fascinated adults. This shows how companies can test for water pollution. Extraordinary, commented an elegant woman who had joined our group. I'm Catherine Wells from the Governor's Science Education Initiative. We've been looking for young ambassadors for our new program. Who's been supporting her studies? That would be Olivia. James spoke up suddenly, his voice firm. She's been taking Emily to science clubs, helping with experiments. The whole family's very proud. I turned to stare at my husband, surprised by his unexpected support. He met my eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw a glimmer of the man I'd married, the one who'd once promised to always put our daughter first. Diana tried to salvage the situation. We've all contributed to Margaret's. Emily, James corrected sharply. Her name is Emily. The photographer from the local paper was circulating, capturing images of Emily's experiments and the impressed faces of Marcus's law firm colleagues. Each flash felt like another crack in the Anderson family's perfect facade. Mrs. Anderson, Richard addressed Diana again. I hope we'll see Emily at the firm's Family Science Fair next month. We're always looking to nurture young talent. He turned to me. And Olivia, I'd love to discuss your daughter's project in more detail. Our environmental law division could learn something from her research. Diana and Jessica stood frozen, watching their carefully constructed plans crumble. The promotion party they tried to force through had backfired spectacularly, turning instead into a showcase of Emily's achievements. James stepped closer to me, speaking quietly. I should have stood up to them sooner. I'm sorry. It's not me you need to apologize to, I replied, watching Emily demonstrate another experiment. He nodded, understanding. I know, and I will. Things are going to be different. As the party continued, it became clear that Emily wasn't just the center of attention, she was a star. Her genuine enthusiasm for science, combined with her ability to explain complex concepts simply, had charmed everyone. The museum's director had already asked about hosting her next project. Diana made one last attempt to regain control. Well, this has been lovely, but we should discuss Marcus's celebration. Oh, that won't be necessary, Richard interjected smoothly. Given the circumstances, I think it's best to wait until partnership decisions are actually made. Though I must say, unauthorized announcements don't reflect well on candidates. Jessica's face crumpled as she realized the implications. Marcus's premature promotion party hadn't just been canceled, it had potentially derailed his chances completely. Mom, Emily called out, running over with excitement. Can I show everyone the big experiment now? I checked my watch and smiled. Perfect timing, sweetheart. The lights dimmed and Emily, with the help of the museum staff, conducted a spectacular demonstration involving luminescent chemicals and renewable energy. The crowd gasped and applauded, their phones up to record the moment. This is what real achievement looks like, James said loudly enough for his family to hear. Not forced celebrations or fake promotions. Just pure talent and hard work. Diana, Jessica, and Marcus's carefully maintained image of family success had been replaced by something authentic, a young girl's genuine passion for science and the recognition she deserved. As Emily blew out her candles, surrounded by admirers both young and old, I caught Diana's eye across the room. She looked away first, perhaps finally understanding that her days of controlling and diminishing our family were over. The party wasn't just a celebration of Emily's 10th birthday. It was a declaration of independence from the Anderson family's manipulations. And judging by the business cards being pressed into my hands by impressed professionals, it was just the beginning of Emily's rise and her grandmother's fall from grace. The fallout from Emily's birthday party was swift and far-reaching. Within a week, Marcus was called into a partners' meeting at his law firm to explain his premature promotion announcement. Diana's carefully cultivated social media image of the perfect family matriarch crumbled as videos of Emily's science demonstration went viral, with comments questioning why such a talented child had been deliberately excluded from family events. I sat in my home office, reviewing emails from the governor's science education initiative about Emily's new role as a youth ambassador when James walked in looking troubled. Marcus didn't make partner, he said quietly. The firm felt his judgment was questionable after the party incident. Mom's not taking it well. I can imagine, I replied, remembering Diana's countless social media posts about her son's inevitable success. How's Marcus handling it? He moved back home. Jessica too. They're blaming us for ruining everything. James ran a hand through his hair. Though Mom's latest theory is that you orchestrated this whole thing from the start. I couldn't help but laugh. She gives me too much credit. I didn't orchestrate anything. I just stopped letting them hurt our daughter. My phone buzzed with another message from Catherine Wells about Emily's upcoming presentation at the State Science Conference. The same conference where, last year, Diana had told Emily to stop showing off when she tried to explain her project to family members. They want to see you, James continued, to discuss the situation, as Mom puts it. I closed my laptop and turned to face my husband. No, I'm done with their family meetings and manipulations. If they want to see Emily, they can start by learning her name and showing genuine interest in her achievements. James nodded, and I saw new resolve in his expression. I told him the same thing. Mom didn't like it. She threatened to remove us from the family will. Let me guess. Right after she mentioned Marcus needs financial help after losing the partnership. Got it in one. He sat down heavily. I should have seen it sooner. The way they always pushed Emily aside. How they used money to control everyone. I was so used to giving in, I couldn't see what it was doing to our daughter. A knock at the door interrupted us. Emily bounded in, clutching a letter. Mom. Dad. The Science Museum wants me to help design their new children's program. Can we celebrate? James swept her up in a hug. Of course we can, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Can we invite Grandma and Aunt Jessica? Emily asked innocently. Maybe they'd like to learn about science too. I exchanged glances with James, seeing the same pain in his eyes. Our daughter was still willing to share her joy with people who had repeatedly rejected her. How about we invite Dr. Peterson and Mrs. Wells instead? I suggested. They've been asking about your next project. Emily's face lit up. Really? Dr. Peterson said his daughter loves science too. Can she come? Already making connections, James murmured proudly. That's my girl. My phone buzzed again, Deanna's name flashing on the screen. I declined the call and blocked the number. Let her sit with the consequences of her actions for once. Later that evening, as Emily showed us her plans for the museum program, my email pinged with a message from Jessica. The subject line read, "You've ruined this family." I opened it, ready for more accusations, but what I found was different. Marcus lost everything because of you. Mom's a mess. The country club is whispering about us. Happy now? You and your precious little scientist have destroyed our family's reputation. I hope you know this isn't over. I forwarded the email to my lawyer without replying. They still didn't understand, or didn't want to understand, that they had done this to themselves. Their actions at Emily's birthday party had simply revealed their true nature to the world. Mom? Emily's voice pulled me back to the present. Can you help me with this part of the presentation? Of course, sweetie. I joined her at the table, watching as she confidently explained complex scientific concepts. My daughter wasn't just surviving despite her father's family's attempts to diminish her, she was thriving. A week later, the local paper ran a feature on Emily's new role at the museum. The comments section filled with praise for her intelligence and poise. One comment stood out. Watching this young scientist explain environmental responsibility to adults twice her age was inspiring. The Anderson family must be so proud. Diana had always cared about public image above all else. Now her family's name was associated with Emily's success they had tried to prevent. It was a sweeter revenge than anything I could have planned. James hung the article in his office, right next to Emily's science fair ribbons. When his mother called to complain, he finally said what he should have said years ago. My daughter deserves better than what this family has given her. If you can't support her success, you don't need to be part of it. Emily's next birthday would be different, not because of elaborate revenge plans or public celebrations, but because she would be surrounded by people who genuinely celebrated her achievements. And if her grandparents and aunt chose to stay away, well, that would be their loss. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above and showing everyone exactly what they tried to hold back. Don't worry, they're totally fine. Madeline's text came through at 1:14 a.m. sound asleep. Checked on them an hour ago. I was at a medical conference in Denver, 3 states away from my children, when my phone buzzed with a notification, not from Madeline's text, but from my smart doorbell camera. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm a pediatric surgeon and single mother to 2 amazing kids, Emma, 8, and Lucas, 6. That night, my world nearly shattered because I trusted my sister-in-law to watch them while I attended a mandatory conference. The doorbell footage showed my children in their pajamas wandering around our front yard in the dark. Emma was holding Lucas's hand, both of them looking confused and scared. My heart stopped. I immediately called Madeline. Music thumped in the background when she answered. "Hey, the kids are fine, totally knocked out," she yelled over the noise. "Really? Then why is my doorbell camera showing them outside right now?" My voice was ice cold. Silence. Then, oh my God. "Where are you, Madeline?" I'm at Eclipse, but I swear, I checked on them before I left. They were sleeping. Eclipse, the new nightclub downtown. My children's aunt, whom I trusted to stay with them overnight, had left them alone to go clubbing. Get back to my house. Now. I hung up and called Mrs. Peterson, my elderly neighbor. She answered on the second ring, bless her heart. "Sarah, is everything all right?" "Mrs. Peterson, I'm so sorry to wake you, but I need your help. My children are outside alone. Could you please get them and take them to your house until I can get someone there?" "Oh, my word. Of course, dear. I see them right now. Poor things." I watched through the doorbell camera as Mrs. Peterson hurried across her lawn in her robe. Emma saw her and waved, relief visible even in the grainy night footage. "Emma." "Lucas, what are you doing outside, sweeties?" Mrs. Peterson's voice came through clearly on the camera. "We woke up and Aunt Maddie was gone," Emma explained, clutching Lucas's hand tighter. "We got scared because all the lights were off and we couldn't find her. We thought maybe she was out here." My 6-year-old son was crying quietly. I felt sick to my stomach. While Mrs. Peterson shepherded my children to her house, I called the police. Then I called Jack, my ex-husband's brother and Madeline's husband. "Do you know where your wife is?" I asked when he answered groggily. "She said she was staying at your place tonight, watching the kids while you're at your conference." "Why?" "She left them alone to go to Eclipse. The police are on their way to my house now." Silence followed by a string of curses. "I'm on my way." I booked the first flight home I could find, but it wouldn't leave for 5 hours. I felt helpless, watching through Mrs. Peterson's security cameras as police cars arrived at my house, lights flashing. Madeline showed up 20 minutes later in an Uber, stumbling slightly in her high heels. She was wearing a tight red dress that barely covered anything, not exactly appropriate attire for watching young children. The police were waiting for her. Through the camera feed, I could hear her trying to explain. "I just went out for a little bit. They were sleeping. I didn't think they'd wake up." One of the officers was taking notes while another spoke into his radio. Jack arrived moments later, his face a mask of fury as he watched his wife being questioned by the police. Mrs. Peterson sent me periodic updates about the children. They were scared but safe, cuddled up on her couch with hot chocolate and her old golden retriever, Max. "Emma's more worried about you being upset than anything else," Mrs. Peterson texted. "She keeps saying she hopes Aunt Maddie isn't in too much trouble." That was my Emma, always thinking of others, even when she was the one who'd been wronged. My heart ached for both my children and for the trust that had been broken. I opened my messages from Madeline, scrolling through her earlier texts from the evening, 7:45 p.m. "Kids are fed. Emma helped make mac and cheese. 9:00 p.m. Both tucked in after story time. Emma wanted 3 books, but I kept it to 1 lull. 11:30 p.m. Everything's great here. They're sleeping like angels. 1:14 a.m. Don't worry, they're totally fine. Each message was a lie, carefully crafted to hide what she was really doing. The police would later find her apartment key in my house. She'd planned this all along, waiting until the children were asleep to go out. The responding officers took statements from everyone. My neighbors who had security footage of the time frame, Mrs. Peterson, Jack, and of course, Madeline. Because no harm had come to the children and they hadn't been left alone for an extended period, they said it would be up to me whether to press charges. As I sat in the quiet airport terminal waiting for my flight, I thought about all the times Madeline had watched my children before. How many other nights had she done this? How many times had my children been left alone while their aunt went out partying? The thought made me sick. I trusted her not just as their aunt, but as family. She betrayed that trust in the most fundamental way possible. My phone buzzed with a text from Jack. I'm staying at Mrs. Peterson's with the kids until you get home. We need to talk about what happens next. What happens next? Such a simple phrase for such a complicated situation. This wasn't just about one night of negligence. This was about family, trust, and the safety of my children. As I boarded my flight home, I knew one thing for certain. Madeline would never be left alone with my children again. But the ripple effects of her actions would impact our entire family in ways none of us could have anticipated. By the time I arrived home at 7 a.m., the situation had evolved from a family crisis into something much more complicated. Madeline had been posting on social media all night, trying to control the narrative before I could even get home. Some people are so dramatic. She'd written at 3 a.m. kids were perfectly safe, sleeping soundly, but sure called the cops because they woke up and got scared. #overprotective Mick. Her friends had chimed in with supportive comments. You're such a great aunt. And some people just don't know how to have fun anymore. Each notification made my blood boil. I found Jack sitting at my kitchen table, looking like he hadn't slept at all. Mrs. Peterson had brought the children back home an hour earlier, and they were finally sleeping in their own beds. Madeline's at her mother's house, he said before I could ask. She's convinced this is all being blown out of proportion. Said she checked the children were asleep before leaving, that she was only gone for 2 hours, that she deserves a life too. I set my bag down carefully, controlling my anger. She deserves a life? What about my children's right to feel safe in their own home? Jack ran his hands through his hair. I know. Trust me, I know. But her mother's taking her side, saying you're using this to drive a wedge between us. That you've always been jealous of Madeline's youth and freedom. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Freedom to abandon children in her care? To go clubbing while they wake up alone and scared. The police want to know if you're pressing charges, Jack said quietly. They said it would be child endangerment, a misdemeanor, but with her social media posts trying to minimize it. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from my ex-husband, David. Just saw Madeline's posts. What the hell happened? Are the kids okay? Perfect. Now the whole family would be involved. I spent the next hour giving statements to Child Protective Services, who had been notified by the police. They took detailed notes about the incident, including screenshots of Madeline's social media posts and the doorbell camera footage. Mrs. Mitchell, the CPS worker, said gently, given your profession as a pediatric surgeon, you understand why we take these situations seriously. Your sister-in-law's apparent lack of remorse and attempts to downplay the incident are concerning. I nodded, thinking of all the cases of neglect I'd seen in my work. I never thought my own children would be victims of it. Around noon, Madeline's mother, Patricia, showed up unannounced. She burst into my house like she owned it, her face red with indignation. How dare you do this to my daughter, she shouted. She made one mistake and you're trying to ruin her life. Those children were perfectly safe. I stood my ground. They were wandering outside at 1 a.m. while your daughter was at a nightclub. They could have been kidnapped, hit by a car, anything could have happened. Oh please, Patricia scoffed. When we were young, children had more freedom. This helicopter parenting is what's wrong with your generation. This isn't about parenting styles, I said firmly. This is about a responsible adult abandoning her duty of care. Duty of care. Patricia laughed bitterly. Listen to you, so clinical and cold. No wonder David left. That was a low blow, but I refused to take the bait. I think you should leave now. Not until you agree to drop this ridiculous idea of pressing charges. Madeline's sorry, isn't that enough? I thought about my children's faces in the doorbell camera footage, scared and confused in the dark. No, it's not enough. And if Madeline was truly sorry, she wouldn't be on social media trying to justify what she did. Patricia left in a huff, but the drama was far from over. Within hours, the family had split into 2 camps. Those who thought I was overreacting and those who supported my decision to take legal action. Jack was caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to his wife and his duty as an uncle. I love Madeline, he told me that evening, but what she did, I can't defend it. And these social media posts, trying to make you look like the bad guy. I don't even recognize her anymore. Emma and Lucas were quiet that day, processing what had happened in their own ways. Emma kept checking to make sure the doors were locked, while Lucas wouldn't let me out of his sight. "Mommy," Emma asked as I tucked them in that night, "is Aunt Maddie going to jail?" My heart broke at the worry in her voice. "No, sweetheart. But she made a very bad choice, and there have to be consequences. Like when I broke your favorite mug and couldn't watch TV for a week." "Something like that," I said, smoothing her hair. "The important thing is that you and Lucas are safe." As I closed their bedroom door, my phone lit up with a text from Madeline. "Can we talk? I know I messed up, but don't let one mistake ruin everything." One mistake that could have cost me everything, I thought. But this conversation would have to wait until tomorrow. Right now, my children needed me, and they would always come first. The next day would bring more family drama, more accusations, and a revelation about Madeline that would change everything. But for now, my children were safe in their beds, and that was all that mattered. The revelation about Madeline came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Peterson called me the next morning, her voice trembling with concern. "Sarah, dear, I think you should know something. This wasn't the first time." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "About a month ago, when you were working the night shift, I saw Madeline leaving your house around midnight. I assumed she'd arranged for someone else to watch the children, but now—" I felt sick. Checking my smart doorbell's history confirmed my worst fears. Over the past 3 months, there were at least 5 instances where Madeline had left the house late at night while watching my children. When I confronted Jack with this information, he broke down. "I found bar receipts in her purse," he admitted. "I thought they were from nights out with her friends, but the dates match up with when she was supposed to be watching Emma and Lucas." I called the police investigator handling the case. This wasn't just one incident of poor judgment, it was a pattern of endangerment. Madeline's response was to double down. She posted a lengthy Facebook rant about how I was destroying her marriage and using my position as a doctor to make her look bad. Then came the text that pushed me over the edge. "Maybe if you spent less time working and more time being a real mother, you wouldn't need me to watch your kids." I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The family divide grew deeper. Patricia led a campaign of harassment, telling anyone who would listen that I was an ungrateful, vindictive woman who was jealous of her daughter's youth and freedom. Some relatives stopped speaking to me entirely, but others stepped forward with their own stories. "She left my son alone at the park last summer," my cousin Amanda revealed. "Said she had to take an important call. But I saw her Instagram story, she was meeting friends for drinks." Even David, my ex-husband, stood firmly on my side. "Press charges," he insisted. "The kids could have been hurt. This isn't about family loyalty anymore. It's about their safety." The final straw came when Emma's therapist called me. During their session, Emma had revealed something chilling. The night Aunt Maddie left, it wasn't the first time we woke up alone. She had told the therapist. Sometimes we'd wake up and she wouldn't be there, but she made us promise not to tell. She said you'd have to work more if we did, and then we'd never see you. That emotional manipulation of my children was unforgivable. I filed charges the next day. Madeline was arrested for multiple counts of child endangerment. The evidence was overwhelming. Doorbell camera footage, bar receipts, witness statements, and her own incriminating social media posts. Jack filed for divorce shortly after. "I loved her," he told me, "but I can't be with someone who would endanger children and then try to justify it." Emma and Lucas could have been hurt, or worse. Patricia showed up at my house one last time, but this visit was different. Her righteous anger had been replaced by desperate pleading. "Please drop the charges," she begged. "Madeline's life will be ruined. She'll never be able to work with children again." "That's exactly the point," I replied calmly. "She shouldn't work with children. She's proven she can't be trusted with their safety." Madeline took a plea deal, probation, mandatory counseling, and a restriction from working with or caring for minors. She moved back in with Patricia, her social media suddenly quiet. The family rift would never fully heal, but I was at peace with that. My children's safety was worth more than keeping up appearances. 6 months later, Emma and Lucas were thriving. Therapy had helped them process their fear of abandonment, and our bond was stronger than ever. One evening, as I tucked them into bed, Lucas asked, "Mom, are you mad that we didn't tell you about Aunt Maddie leaving before?" "No, sweetheart," I assured him. "None of this was your fault. You were very brave to tell the truth when you did." Emma hugged me tight. "We like Mrs. Peterson watching us now. She never leaves, and she makes the best cookies." I smiled, grateful for my elderly neighbor who had become such a reliable part of our lives. Later that night, I received an unexpected email from Jack. He was moving to Seattle for a fresh start, but he wanted me to know something. "You did the right thing, Sarah." I was too close to see it at first, but Madeline's actions could have had tragic consequences. Emma and Lucas are lucky to have a mother who puts their safety first, no matter the personal cost. Looking at my sleeping children, I knew every burned bridge had been worth it. Sometimes being a good parent means making hard choices, standing firm when it would be easier to give in. Madeline's betrayal had cost me family relationships, but it had given me something more valuable: the knowledge that I would always protect my children, no matter what anyone else thought. And that was worth everything.